Hello, it's me, Kerbanaut here, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Kerbanaut's Guide to the Solar System, the series in which we explore the solar system and I show you how to do many different things, including getting to other planets, which of course is one of the main things, one of the big goals out there is to get to another planet. So today we're going to look at actually transferring over to another planet and landing on said planet, because we've already looked at docking and we've looked at designing craft. So today we're going to look at getting to other planets. So what you're seeing here is just me docking on another fuel tank, just getting it in there. I ran out of RCS fuel on the actual tank itself, so I have to bring the whole ship over to it, which was interesting. But that happened successfully, and we can now start to look at the way that we're going to get to another planet. Now, the planet that we're going to be getting to today is Duna. Now, Duna is one of the more popular destinations for a first planet to visit, and that's why I think we're going to go for it today. So, the first step we're going to want to do is select it as our target. Okay, now we're selecting it as our target because we need to know when we get an encounter or when we get a close encounter. So selecting it as a target is going to allow us to see that. Now the next step is, of course, time warping. We're time warping because we need to get to the correct angle. The transfer angle, as I like to call it. Now this transfer angle varies for every planet. It varies for the two planets that you're going to and from, but when you're leaving Kerban to go to Duna, the transfer angle is approximately 45 degrees. So we have to put Kerban 45 degrees behind Duna. Now we do that, of course, by time warping, and we set a new ship there, and we time warp. Now we're going to hop back over to our interplanetary craft, or Daisy, as I've nicknamed it. Okay, so next up is the burn angle. Now this burn angle has to be just after sunset. We're going to burn just after sunset so that we get the right trajectory coming out of Kerban's sphere of influence. That will allow us to make the most fuel efficient burn. Now you can see here that I'm not getting an intercept, and the reason I'm not getting an intercept is because the angle, our transfer angle, is not correct. We're too far away. We're at an angle larger than 45 degrees, and so what we're going to do is we're going to just time warp a wee bit more. So we're just going to hop around for another quick time warp, and hopefully this will solve the problem. So we're going to quickly switch back to Daisy, and we're going to go and do this now. So we're going to go and check and see. So let's put down our node again, because of course our nodes and our targets and everything get deleted when we change ship. So we're gonna have to set that node down just after sunset there, and we're gonna go out here. Now I will note that for transferring to other planets that are not Duna, your kind of initial transfer point around Kerban is going to be different. If you're going to a planet that's closer to the sun than Kerban, you're going to be burning just after sunrise as opposed to just after sunset. Okay, so you saw there we just got our intercept. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to burn. Now we are spreading this burn out over the node, because the node it thinks that we're giving that delta V all at the same time, and we're not. We're spreading the burn out because we literally cannot give all that delta V in one instant. So we're going to spread that burn out. You see, I kind of went past the node too far, and I figured, you know what, I'm not going to be accurate if I keep burning. So what I did was I just went all the way back around, and I managed to get out. So here we are. We're just bringing our orbit out, and you can see that we're going to get intercept here. That's lovely. Now, the closer that your intersect is with your apoapsis, your solar apoapsis, the more efficient your burn is going to be. So you don't want to have to push your apoapsis up too far to get your intercept. So this is quite an efficient burn actually, and I was quite happy with this. However, later on we do get a few problems. But for right now, that is fine. We are good to go. Okay, so the next stage in this transfer is just the time warp. So we're gonna just go to Duna now. We're gonna get to Duna's sphere of influence by time warping around. Now, usually what you would do is, if the planet you were going to had a slightly different inclination to the planet you were coming from, you would do your inclination change somewhere in the middle of this transfer. You would stop and you would do your inclination change. And then, a bit closer, so about here, what I should have done and what I forgot to do was to do a kind of a change to get me closer to the planet. Now, I do it here, but I really should have done it a bit earlier. What I'm doing is I'm going to burn north so that my periaps around Duna will get closer, will get lower. So that basically I'm getting closer to Duna. And that is good because the further away you are when you do your burn, the more efficient that burn is going to be. The less fuel you need to use up to do the same amount of work. Now, I didn't manage to get it really close, so I come into Duna's sphere of influence, and I find that my periaps is quite far away. You can see that. And so what I have to do is I have to burn towards, I have to burn in a certain direction so that my periaps will get closer to Duna. Now, if you feel the need, you can use nodes to see what you have to do. So you're going to set a node down and just play around with it until your periaps gets nice and close. Now, what I have to do here is I have to get my periapses to actually go into Duna. And the reason I have to get into Duna, get it to actually collide with Duna, is because I have a fuel tank on my ship, which is completely useless. It's empty. And so I just want to throw that into Duna. I could just leave it floating around in solar space, but that's rather dirty, and I don't like doing it. So there we go, we've got our periaps into Duna. I've just disconnected that fuel tank there that's empty, and now we're just going to turn around and burn, and we're going to get our periaps back up above Duna. Now, we don't want to get our periaps too high, because if we get it too high, what will happen is we won't be able to use what's called a aero brake. Now, an aero brake is when you go into a planet's atmosphere and use the atmosphere to slow down. So what you'll be doing is you're using the friction of the air in the atmosphere on your ship to actually slow yourself down. Now, I have not done this very successfully in this. I did get inside the atmosphere, but I kind of overestimated the thickness of Duna's atmosphere here, and I have had to help it along by burning retrograde. As you can see here, I'm having to burn retrograde even though I am inside Duna's atmosphere. I do have to burn retrograde. What I could have done is I could have gone even lower, and I wouldn't have to have burned, and Duna's atmosphere would have captured me into Duna's orbit. And that way I wouldn't have to have had wasted fuel, which is absolutely brilliant, because when you're going to other planets, fuel is like gold. You want to hold on to as much fuel as you possibly can. The more fuel you have, the more room you have to mess up. Not that you're going to want to mess up, but it's just for those situations where you go, oh no, I've forgotten something, I'm going to need more fuel to do this, and then you actually have the fuel to do it. So, here you can see we've just got captured into Duna's orbit here. I've been doing a retrograde burn, and then I've just, a bit later on, after a wee bit of tweaking, I'm just doing another retrograde burn, and you see we get a little intercept with Ike right there, which is a problem, but we just keep burning retrograde, and that goes away, and we're all good. So, here we are, we're burning. And what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to get a relatively circular orbit. And the reason for that is because when we land on Duna, we are going to want to come back up and dock with that parent spacecraft again, just so that we can go back to Kerbin. So, right here, there you go. It's relatively circular, not perfect by any means, but it can be classed as a circular orbit. So, next up, we are going to disconnect the lander. But before we disconnect the lander, I'm going to turn it to 90 or 180 degrees. At this point I'm turning it to 180 just because it was closer, but you could turn it to 90 if you wanted. Now I am turning it a wee bit off, I think. No, I'm okay. I'm just turning it to 180. There we go. Yeah, so 180 degrees. That's so that when we come back up, we know which way it's facing, so we can just dock there right away, and that'll be easy enough. So right, let us undock, and we can start our landing procedure. So pressing the undock button now. There we go. So switch over by pressing the bracket key, the square bracket key, and use a little bit of RCS just to push yourselves away from that parent craft. The next stage is the landing. Now the landing is different with every planet. Usually what you will do is you will want to burn retrograde first of all. That is your first main step with any landing. You're going to want to burn retrograde. Now this is going to bring you down. Now, depending on which planet or moon you're visiting, you may just want to burn retrograde a little and then let the atmosphere do the rest, and then maybe put up some parachutes and maybe do an assisted landing. Or you could, if there's no atmosphere on the planet or moon, you could do what you do on a moon landing, and you could burn retrograde and then keep yourself from falling a bit more, burn retrograde again, and so on and so forth until you land. Now, in this, I forget to launch my parachutes. Deploy my parachutes. And because I do this, I waste a lot of fuel trying to land. Fuel that will be very, very needed when I try to make my burn back. But that's not going to be done in this episode. I'll do that in the next one. Anyway, so here we go. I'm doing my retrograde burn. I've got a Poodle engine, I believe, on this. Which is... No, it's a Skipper. Poodle. Yes, that would be rather bad. No, it's a Skipper engine I've got here, and I'm just doing my retrograde, and you can see that I'm now on a suborbital trajectory following towards Duna. At this point, what I should have done, and what I suggest you do, is you should deploy your parachutes. Now, your parachutes are going to come in very, very, very handy when landing on Duna. Not because Duna has a huge gravity, or it's not amazingly important, but I really do suggest it because you will be wasting so much fuel doing a normal landing like I'm doing here. I have got asparagus staging on my fuel tanks on this lander, which helps a little, but it's still dodgy just because I think that I should really have just decided to deploy those parachutes. Anyway, so I'm just time warping down because there's no need to burn at this point. I just needed to do my retrograde burn and then get closer to the planet, do another retrograde burn, and so on and so forth. Rinse, repeat, all that stuff, and until I get nice and close. So this is probably the last stage of this kind of repetitive thing, and this last stage concerns the retrograde marker on the nav ball. Now, if you have a look on the retrograde marker on the nav ball, I am not following it. I'm going to be staying roughly where I am, and I want to get this retrograde marker at the very top of the nav ball, which means that I'm going to be going directly down. I'm going to come down, just straight down on the planet, and I've probably just roughly achieved that right there. I wouldn't have needed to do that really if I had parachutes, because parachutes would have automatically done that for me. So yeah, after we've done that, we can really just come straight down and then start burning when we get close to the ground. After getting really close, you bring the throttle down and you just slow down very, very slowly until you get close. You can see the shadow there indicating how close I am to the ground. And we're about to touch down, and this is just your general touchdown right there. Now, even if I had parachutes, I probably still would have had to do that, just because Juno's atmosphere is quite thin. You can even see up on the atmosphere bar how thin that atmosphere is. So, here we are! We are on Duna's surface. We have got to Duna. So what's the first thing we have to do? We have to plant a flag. That's what we're gonna do. And I believe I named this Yay, I think, but I don't know. I have no idea why I named it. Is that Yay? I think it's Yay or something. I don't know. Okay, so there we go. We've done that. Now, I did not put ladders on this, but thankfully, Duna's gravity is slightly less than that of Kerbin's, so we can use RCS to kind of get up there. Unfortunately, it's not powerful enough to like really lift us off the ground, so I have to do a kind of a wee jump and assist with RCS, which gets us really high. Not like high as in we've got Jebediah smoking weed or anything. We're just kind of doing that kind of thing. So here we go. There we go. We are inside the craft. We are inside along with the rest of them who are not allowed outside because yeah, we don't have enough, like, we don't pay them to go walking around on Duna. That costs extra money. We only pay Jebediah. And there we go. So at this point, let's just say that we've gone around, we've had fun on Duna, we've done some experiments, we've played around with rovers. I don't know, we've done everything that we need to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our spacecraft. And what I was doing there was two things. The first thing I was doing was finding out which way the spacecraft is orbiting, and it's orbiting clockwise, and the planet is rotating anti-clockwise. Now again, that was my bad. I would have been saving fuel if I had made the craft orbit anti-clockwise with the planet, so I didn't have to spend as much fuel landing and taking off. However, I can't help that now, so as long as I know which way the craft is orbiting, I know which way I have to be orbiting. So you can see that I'm putting my apoapse up, and I'm going to have to put it a little bit higher than the orbit I'm going for, just because I am still inside the atmosphere, and that orbit will decrease over time. Now, I do end up running out of fuel, as you can see. I've run out of fuel, and I've run out of fuel because I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done, and I forgot to do a lot of things that I really should have done. However, I've managed to save myself with RCS, because I did put RCS on this craft, and I decided I put on there for docking, but I ended up having a lot of it, so I'm using it now to dock and keep myself in orbit. So I'm doing a lot of inclination changes here, because you can see the inclination I'm going for is quite high, and so I'm gonna have to change my inclination. And you can see here I'm trying to get an encounter with this spacecraft on the other side of the planet there, and I'm just gonna go around and do a few things here and there, and try and get a close encounter with the ship. Now, I would suggest, if you have the fuel, try and get your parent spacecraft into just a normal equatorial orbit. And that way you don't have to do a lot of inclination changes, and you know where it is. And you know, if you get it into a lovely circular, say 100-kilometer equatorial orbit, then that's so much easier to dock with than this. And I'm wasting a lot of RCS fuel having to do this. Honestly, this is not the best example of doing this. This is really almost the worst example. And in some ways that is very good for you, because it kind of shows you what to do if you do something incredibly wrong. And really, that's, I guess, good, because it means if you do something wrong, you can look at what I've done and you go, hey, he did it as well, good stuff, right, okay. That's how to fix it. So here we go, we're using RCS, we're getting our encounter. You can see the close encounter things, just the nodes, just showing me where that encounter is, and I'm getting nice and close. And this is the point at which I'm going to be going in for the dock, going in for that docking again. Now, you can see I'm quite low on the RCS fuel. If you look up in the top right hand side, my monopropellant is getting quite low from all that monopropellant burn that I did. and so I'm going to have to watch that. I'm going to have to watch the monopropellant burn, making sure that I'm not going to run out, but it's getting close, and so I'm having to be very, very, very careful with how much fuel I'm using. Nonetheless, I do get really nice and close, and I have decided that I'm going to let the magnets do most of the work. So I'm sorry about the very darkness, and it should brighten up any moment now. And there we go. Yes, okay. So it's nice and bright here, and so you can see what I'm doing. So it's a matter of doing one thing at a time, going in one direction at a time. So I'm correcting all the changes in direction. Unfortunately, you can't really see the nav ball at this time, but I am paying a lot of attention to the nav ball. And if you watched the last episode, you'll know what to do. Pardon me, but you'll know what to do because this is really the same procedure, just around a different planet. This is the same docking procedure, like exactly the same. So you shouldn't have to. You should know roughly what to do here. I'm not gonna burn too much with RTS because I really am running low. I just let the magnets do the work here, all around the ports, docking ports, and there we go. We have docked. That is us done. We're docked. So there we go, folks. That is really how you do it. That's how you get to Duna and land and come back up. But we have to return these Kerbals to Kerbin. We are not going to leave them here. We are not going to just leave them stranded in space around Duna. We are going to bring them back. However, this episode has already ran on for about 20 minutes, so I'm not going to do that right now. I will do it later in another episode. I'll show you how to bring them back, because it is a little different bringing them back than it is taking them here. The angle is a little different, but I shall talk about that at another time. So, that is all from me. Have a good day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.